Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The bus stop, the blood, and the beautiful lie. The rain hadn't let up for hours, slicing through the night like icy knives. Ethan Torres pulled his hoodie tighter as he crossed the abandoned lot behind the terminal. His boots squelched in the muddy ground, and the flickering yellow light from the single overhead street lamp gave the place a haunted, dreamlike feel. That's when he heard it, a soft whimper, almost swallowed by the rain. He froze. Another whimper, low, muffled, pained. He turned the corner by the dumpsters, and there she was, crumpled beside the wall, soaked to the bone, and holding her side with both hands. Blood. Dark, thick, oozing between her fingers. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, dropping to his knees. Hey, are you... What happened?" Her eyes opened slowly, glazed and terrified. Don't call anyone." "What?" He was already fumbling for his phone. "No police," she gasped. "No hospitals." "You're bleeding," he said, panic rising in his throat. "You need a doctor." "No," she snapped, coughing. "Just help me get to the next bus." He stared at her like she was speaking another language. She looked 25, maybe 30. Her face, though pale, was striking. High cheekbones, almond-shaped eyes, and a kind of weary grace that made her look out of place in this dark, grimy alley. Not a druggie, not a runaway, something else, something stranger. "You're stabbed," he said, pointing at the growing stain on her coat. "You want me to put you on a bus?" She nodded, eyes filled with some quiet, frantic fire. "Please." Against every bit of logic in his head, he sighed and took off his hoodie, pressing it to her side. "Fine, but you're gonna owe me an explanation." She didn't answer, just nodded slowly and tried to stand. 15 minutes later, they were standing beneath the flickering sign of the city bus depot. She was leaning against a post, hoodie wrapped tightly around her, hood up, one arm still clutched to her side. "I don't even know your name," he said. She looked at him then. "It's better that way." He gave a bitter laugh. "Seriously?" She reached into her coat and pulled out a small black velvet pouch tied with gold string. "Take this." He hesitated. "I don't want—" "Just take it," she said firmly, placing it in his palm. "And don't open it until next week, no matter what happens." The bus pulled in, hissing and groaning like a tired animal. She limped toward it. "Wait," he called. "Are you sure you're okay?" She turned once more, her lips curved into the faintest, saddest smile. "No," she whispered. "But thank you." Then she was gone. That should have been the end. But the next morning, Ethan found a note tucked under his windshield wiper. "You shouldn't have helped me. I'm sorry if they come looking. A friend." He scanned the parking lot. No one. Just his beat-up car and a growing sense of unease. He opened the pouch, curiosity winning over caution. Inside was a single gold coin. Not money, not jewelry. A coin etched with strange symbols he didn't recognize, heavy in his hand, like it carried a secret. What the hell had he gotten himself into? 3 nights later, his trailer was broken into. Nothing was stolen, no drawers ransacked. Just one thing. The photos on his fridge, all turned face down, and a red X spray-painted on the inside of his front door. His stomach dropped. It wasn't random, it was a message. He called the police. They shrugged. Could have been kids. But Ethan knew better. He hadn't told anyone about the girl, not even Laura, the waitress he chatted with most nights. He didn't sleep. Kept the lights on. Sat up with a baseball bat in his lap and the gold coin beside him on the table. The next night, he drove into town. Something about being home made his skin crawl now. He pulled into the diner parking lot, needing something familiar. "Hey, stranger," Laura said, smiling. "Rough day?" "Yeah," he said. "Rough week." She poured his coffee and leaned on the counter. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Feels like it." He was halfway through his cup when someone slid into the booth across from him. It was her, clean, dry, wearing an elegant black coat, hair tied back neatly, skin glowing like she hadn't just bled out in an alley 3 nights ago. His jaw dropped. "You're kidding me." She put a finger to her lips. "Don't make a scene. Are you following me? What is this?" "I don't have long," she said. "They think you're with me. You need to leave town." "What? Why?" She leaned closer, voice low and urgent. "Because the people I ran from, they don't let anyone walk away. They watched you help me. Now they think you know something." "I don't even know your name," he hissed. "That's why you're still breathing." He blinked, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "You're a variable, unpredictable. That makes them nervous." He stared at her. "This is insane." She reached into her coat and slid a folded paper across the table. 10 p.m. train yard. Don't bring anyone. Don't be late. Or, what? They'll come to your door instead. She stood up and walked out before he could say another word. He followed her outside, but she was gone. Just like last time, Ethan drove home like a man possessed. He popped the hood, checked every inch of his car, and then beneath the rear bumper, taped carefully to the metal frame, was a small circular device with a blinking red light. A tracker. He wasn't paranoid. He was being watched. At 10 that night, he arrived at the train yard. The wind howled through rusted metal, and broken windows stared down at him like blind eyes. He waited, heart racing. Then she appeared. From the shadows, he stepped forward. "I want answers." She nodded. "You'll get them, but not now." "I'm not playing this game." "Who are you?" She looked him in the eye. "My name is Isabella, but they called me Ivy." "Ivy," he repeated. She looked over her shoulder. "Let's walk." They weaved through rusted freight cars. She talked. "I was raised in a world where power comes first, money second, and human life doesn't make the list." "Cartel?" he asked. "Worse," she said. "Corporations, hidden ones, silent partners of your everyday life. If you've used a credit card, flown a plane, eaten packaged food, they've made money off you." "Conspiracy theory," he scoffed. She stopped walking. "I was an executive, groomed from birth. I found out what they were really doing last year. Tried to leave. They gave me a choice, disappear quietly or die." "So why are you here?" "Because I couldn't let them win," she said. "And because you helped me, which makes you a liability." He laughed bitterly. "Thanks." "I warned you not to help me," she whispered. "Now they'll come for you." He stared at her. "What do I do?" She pulled a card from her coat. Blank on one side. The other had a single phone number. "If anything happens to me, call this." He took it. "And then what?" "Then," she said quietly, "you'll find out just how deep this goes." Suddenly lights flashed across the yard. "Get down!" she shouted, pulling him behind a cargo container. A black SUV rolled slowly through the gates. Men stepped out. Suits, earpieces, guns. "They found me," she whispered. "How?" She looked at him. "The coin. You opened it too soon. They track." "The gold!" His stomach turned. "Run!" she shouted, pushing him. "What about you?" She smiled grimly. "They're after me. Not you. Yet." "Wait!" But she was gone again, running into the darkness, while Ethan stood frozen between the unknown and the undeniable. The secret files and the shot that changed everything. The sound of tires screeching against pavement still echoed in Ethan's ears as he stumbled out of the train yard, heart pounding like a war drum. The card with the phone number burned in his pocket. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Not when floodlights bathed the rusted rails in white, and the men in suits had pulled out weapons that didn't belong in a city like Pine Ridge. He drove without thinking. No music, no lights inside the car, just his thoughts, unraveling into chaos. Who was Ivy, really? And what the hell had he gotten himself into? The blank card sat on his dashboard mocking him. One number, no name, no context. But it held weight. more than the gold coin he'd foolishly opened early. His fingers trembled as he pulled into a 24-hour gas station just outside the city. He didn't need fuel. He needed time. He parked behind the building and sat there, under the buzzing light of a single lamppost. The place was empty except for a sleeping trucker slumped in his cab and the bored teenager behind the register. He took a breath and dialed. The line rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, male, calm. Deep, you have 5 seconds to tell me who gave you this number. Ethan swallowed. Ivy. She gave me the card at the train yard. She said if anything happened, click, the line went dead. He stared at the screen. What the? Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number, 349324 Degainen, 1204382 Dega 1 hour. Come alone. No electronics. Bring the coin. He stared at the message. Coordinates. Ethan opened his Maps app and typed in the numbers. An abandoned farm on the outskirts of town. 50 minutes away. He didn't think. He just drove. The drive-through. The countryside was eerily quiet. Trees leaned over the road like watching sentinels, and the sky stretched overhead, black velvet scattered with stars that didn't care about human problems. He parked outside a rusted gate. The house in the distance looked like something out of a ghost story. Boarded windows, collapsing roof, dead grass, silent, no lights, no movement. He left his phone and wallet in the glove box, slipped the gold coin into his jacket pocket, and walked toward the structure. Halfway there, he heard a low click behind him. Hands up, someone said. He froze. Turn around slowly. He did. A woman, not Ivy, stood in the shadows, holding a pistol with a silencer. She wore tactical black, her face partially obscured by a scarf. I'm not armed, Ethan said. She approached, searched him quickly, then reached into his jacket and pulled out the coin. She studied it under the moonlight, nodded, then tapped her earpiece. He's clean, sending him in. A second later, the front door creaked open. Ethan stepped inside. What he saw didn't match the outside at all. The inside was clean, modern, and humming with electronics. Computers lined one wall, each screen showing maps, surveillance footage, code running in streams. A man stood at the center, staring at a holographic projection of a building Ethan didn't recognize. He turned as Ethan entered. I'm Noah, the man said. You've caused quite a stir, Mr. Torres. I didn't ask for any of this, Ethan said, and yet here you are. Noah walked over and gestured to a table. Sit. We don't have long. Ethan sat, eyes flicking between Noah and the wall of screens. You helped Ivy, Noah said. That makes you both a problem and a potential asset. I didn't know who she was. No one does. Not really. Ivy is a ghost, and she likes it that way. But for her to give you that coin, she must trust you, or she's using you. Which is it? Ethan asked. Noah smiled grimly. Probably both. He tapped a remote. A screen lit up with Ivy's face. This is Isabella Virelli, Noah said. Daughter of Vincenzo Virelli, the former head of Archeon Holdings. Publicly, it's a multinational firm that deals in defense and biotech. Privately, it's part of something far more dangerous, a network of financial dynasties operating above government oversight. The real-world Illuminati, if you want to be dramatic. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And you expect me to believe this? Noah clicked again. Another screen showed news headlines. A plane crash. A warehouse fire, a CEO found dead in his home. All. 3 were whistleblowers, Noah said. All 3 were connected to Archeon. All 3 died within 72 hours of talking to the press. Ethan leaned forward. Why are you telling me this? Because Ivy stole something from them, and we think she gave it to you. Ethan blinked. I don't. The coin, Noah said. It's not gold. It's data. The surface is layered with microtext, an encoded map. Coordinates, files, recordings. We've only cracked part of it. He tapped again. A 3D scan of the coin appeared. The coin contains names, bank routes, evidence of corporate-funded assassinations. If it reaches the wrong hands, people will disappear. If it reaches the right hands, things might change. Ethan swallowed hard. So what do you need from me? Noah's eyes narrowed. We need you to lure her back. Ethan stood. No, she's running for her life. Noah didn't flinch. And she's endangering yours. You've already been flagged. Surveillance drones tracked your car 2 nights ago. Your trailer was bugged. You're not invisible anymore. Ethan shook his head. Then help her. Protect her. Noah was silent. Then he turned to another screen. It showed Ivy, alive, sitting on a park bench in another city, feeding birds like she wasn't being hunted. She's not hiding, Noah said. She's baiting them. And if she gets herself killed, that data dies with her. Ethan stared at the screen. Where is that? He asked. Seattle. I'm going, Ethan said. Noah nodded. You'll need this. He handed Ethan a small flash drive and a burner phone. What's on it? A copy of the decoded data. If she trusts you, she'll take it. If not, walk away, or don't. Just understand that everyone you meet from here on could be watching. Ethan turned toward the door. One more thing, Noah called. If she asks you what happened to her brother, don't lie, she'll know. Ethan froze. She never mentioned a brother. She wouldn't, Noah said. Not unless she thinks she's safe. Ethan didn't sleep. He drove all night, reached Seattle by dawn, parked near the park bench, and there she was, just like in the video, her hair down, hoodie pulled over her head, sneakers tapping against the sidewalk. He approached slowly. Ivy. She turned, startled, then relaxed. I told you not to follow me. You also said they'd kill me. She tilted her head. Are you here to warn me or betray me? I'm here to understand, he said. Why me? She smiled. Because you didn't ask for anything. That's rare. He sat beside her. They showed me everything, he said. The coin, the data, the names. She stiffened. I didn't give it to them, he said quickly. I came to give it to you. He pulled out the flash drive. Her eyes widened slightly. She took it. Do you know what's on this? She asked. I saw some of it. Enough to... No, you're not crazy. She pocketed it. Then you also know I can't go back. Why not? She looked at him, suddenly vulnerable. Because the man who killed my brother runs Archeon now. And I'm not done with him. Ethan leaned in. What happened? Her voice cracked. He found out we were going to leak documents. We were naive. Thought our father's name would protect us. He made it look like a suicide, but I know better. Ethan put a hand on hers. I want to help, he said softly. Ivy looked at him long and hard. Then don't follow me anymore. Just trust me. But as she stood to leave, a shot rang out. Glass shattered, birds scattered. Ethan dove instinctively, pulling her down as another shot hit the bench. Sniper! She shouted. They crawled behind a cement planter. Can you run? He asked. She nodded. Then they bolted. Another shot hit the sidewalk behind them, sending chips of concrete flying. They ducked into an alley, hearts thundering. Did they follow you here? She panted. I don't know, Ethan shouted. She pulled a small pistol from her waistband. Then we end it. He grabbed her arm. No, we go to Noah. She froze. You met Noah? He helped me find you. She looked shaken. That wasn't supposed to happen. Neither was this. Suddenly, a dark figure stepped into the alley, gun raised. Ethan stepped in front of her, just as the man pulled the trigger. The world went white. The letter beneath the coffee cup rain lashed against the window pane, like it had a personal vendetta against the glass. Ethan sat at the tiny wooden table in his apartment, the light above flickering like a nervous heartbeat. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about her. About Ava, the woman with sad eyes, soft words, and secrets she carried like silent bricks in her chest. The woman he barely knew, and yet couldn't get out of his mind. He took another sip of lukewarm coffee and stared at the envelope sitting beneath the chipped ceramic mug. It had arrived that morning. No name, no return address, just his own written in perfect cursive. His stomach twisted. He knew it was from her. Who else would slide something under his door in the early morning without knocking? His fingers trembled slightly as he moved the mug and picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than it looked. He opened it, expecting maybe a thank you note. What he found was something else entirely. It wasn't a letter, it was a confession. "Ethan," it began, "I don't know if I'll ever see you again. And maybe that's best. But I can't leave without giving you the truth, not all of it, just enough to explain what I'm about to do." The next few paragraphs blurred into each other, mentions of danger, betrayal, a name she refused to say but hinted at with chilling detail. "He'll be looking for me. He always is. If he finds me, he won't just ruin my life. He'll end it. And yours too if he learns you helped me." Ethan's hands clenched the paper until it creased down the middle. Who the hell was she running from? And what kind of man could make someone like Ava so terrified she'd vanish into the rain without a trace? The final lines left his throat. "And dry, if you never hear from me again, know that what you did for me mattered. You were the only good thing in a very long time. Please don't come looking. It's safer that way." No name signed at the end. Just a smear of ink where the pen had paused. Maybe where she'd hesitated. Maybe where she'd cried. He read it twice, then a third time. The corners of his mind began to buzz. He should let it go. That's what the letter said. Walk away. Pretend it was just one strange encounter with a woman who needed kindness. But something inside him, the same thing that made him give her that $20, that made him wait outside the station for hours just to see if she made it, refused to let it be over. Not when something felt so wrong. He didn't even grab a coat before leaving the apartment. He didn't need a plan, he just needed to start. The train station was his first stop. The bench where she had waited was empty now, slick with rain, the overhead lights casting a harsh orange glow. He scanned the ground, the benches, even the trash bins. Nothing. Then just as he was about to turn back, he saw it, a torn receipt, soggy, folded into a tight square, wedged between the boards of the bench. He pried it loose, heart pounding. It wasn't just a receipt, it was from a bookstore, Maple and Vine Books, with a handwritten note scribbled across the back in hurried loops. "Meet me there if you change your mind. Saturdays, noon." It was signed with an initial. Ethan had no idea when she wrote it. Maybe before the letter, maybe after, but it gave him one thing he needed more than anything else right now: hope. The following Saturday, he was there at 11:50 a.m. Rain, still soaking through the collar of his jacket. The bookstore was the kind of place that smelled like old pages and cinnamon tea. Wind chimes jingled when he stepped inside. Rows of worn paperbacks lined the walls, and a soft-spoken woman behind the counter gave him a distracted smile. He walked around pretending to browse, all while watching the door. Noon came, then 12:10, then 12:30. He was about to leave when the door opened behind him. He turned, but it wasn't her. It was a man in a dark coat, sunglasses on even though there was barely any light outside. He looked around the bookstore like he wasn't searching for a novel, like he was searching for someone. Ethan's heart thudded. The man caught his eye, paused for just a moment too long, then turned and walked out. What the hell was that? Ethan went back the next Saturday, and the one after that. Ava never came. But the strange man in the coat returned the second week, and the third. This time he didn't come inside. He stood across the street watching. Ethan's blood ran cold. It wasn't paranoia. The man was watching the bookstore, watching him. By the fourth Saturday, Ethan had had enough. He walked right across the street, face to face with the stranger. "You looking for someone?" Ethan asked, voice firm. The man didn't flinch. "No, just waiting on someone." Ethan stared at him. "You've been doing a lot of waiting these past few weeks." The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Some people are worth waiting for." Then he turned and disappeared down the sidewalk. his footsteps swallowed by the sound of distant thunder. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. The letter, the bookstore, the man in the coat. Something was unraveling, and he was at the center of it without even knowing why. He needed answers. He started by going back to the bookstore during the week, asking the cashier if Ava had ever been there. The woman nodded, hesitant. Yeah, she used to come in on Thursdays. Quiet girl, always asked for books on law, psychology, and, I think, financial crime. Ethan blinked. Financial crime? The woman nodded. Yeah, even asked if we had anything about offshore accounts or whistleblowers. Said it was for a novel she was writing. But the look in her eyes said she never believed that story. That night, Ethan searched online, using what little information he had. Ava. Possibly involved in some financial conspiracy. Running from a dangerous man. It was like trying to build a puzzle without the edge pieces. But then something clicked. An article buried deep in a finance blog about an ongoing investigation into embezzlement at a major hedge fund. A whistleblower had vanished. The article didn't name her, but there was a blurry photo, taken at a conference 3 years ago. Ethan leaned in. It was her, Ava, standing next to a man in a dark suit, hand on her back, smiling like a wolf who just swallowed the last rabbit. The caption read, CEO Nathan Rourke, with then Chief Financial Officer Ava Linton. His breath caught. She hadn't just been involved in some company, she'd been at the top of it. And the man she was running from wasn't just dangerous, he was powerful. Ethan's mind reeled. That's why she disappeared. That's why the man in the coat had followed him. He wasn't just dealing with heartbreak, he was tangled in something bigger than he could have imagined. Corporate crimes, millions, maybe billions of dollars. And Ava, the woman who had cried on his shoulder, who had once asked for $20 at a bus stop, had once been a millionaire herself. And now she was a target. That night there was a knock at Ethan's door. 3 slow knocks. He froze. He hadn't told anyone about the article. Hadn't told anyone about Ava. Not out loud. Another knock. Louder this time. He grabbed the letter opener. From the counter, stupid but all he had. He opened the door slowly. It wasn't the man from the street. It was a woman, soaked to the bone. Face hidden beneath a hoodie, lips trembling, a bruise darkening her left cheek, and eyes, familiar, broken, desperate. It was Ava. Before he could speak, she whispered, Ethan, he knows about you. The letter that changed everything, the old leather envelope sat silently on the windowsill, its edges curled from time and weather. Dylan hadn't noticed it before. The rain had stopped sometime during the night, and sunlight filtered through the half-closed blinds of his modest kitchen. The morning felt different, calm yet taut, like the breath before a storm. Ava was still asleep on the couch, a tangle of blankets and curls. Her soft breathing was the only sound in the house. He picked up the envelope cautiously. His name was written across it in elegant cursive. Dylan. No address, no sender. Inside was a handwritten letter, no date. Just a voice on paper, raw and unfiltered. Ava's voice. If you're reading this, it means I've told you nothing and you still gave me shelter. I owe you more than I can say, but before I speak the truth, you need to know why I ran. Dylan's hand trembled as he flipped to the next page. It was like opening a door he didn't know existed. I didn't grow up poor. Not even close. My family owns half the coastline in East Haven, a chain of high-end eco-resorts, and an investment firm that's in every continent except Antarctica. My father, Arthur Hale, heir to it all, never believed I was good enough to inherit. I wasn't ruthless, I wasn't cold. I chose art school, I chose people. That was my first betrayal. The second betrayal came from someone closer. My fiancé, Trevor. He wasn't just in love with my money, he was in business with my father. They found out 2 weeks before the wedding. They forged my signature on a transfer of shares document. Legally, I had nothing. Everything I'd built under my trust fund, gone. Dylan's heart thudded in his chest. He looked at Ava, still asleep. The bruises under her eyes more emotional than physical. He kept reading. They staged an intervention, told me I had a breakdown, that I needed rest, but it was all a trap. They were going to have me committed to a private psychiatric facility, the kind where rich scandals disappear. I overheard the lawyer whispering about power of attorney. That's when I ran. I had 1 hour. I emptied my small emergency account, ditched my phone, and walked into the night. I've been invisible ever since. But I'm tired, Dylan, so tired. I don't want revenge. I want a real life. If I told you this and you threw me out, I'd understand. But if you're reading this and still keeping me here, then maybe you're exactly what I didn't know I needed. Dylan placed the letter down, every word sinking into him like rain into dry earth. It wasn't about her wealth. It was about trust, something both of them had almost lost the ability to feel. Just then, Ava stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, on catching him mid-thought. "You found it," she said quietly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled up a chair beside her. "You could have told me," he said gently. "I was going to. But I thought once I did, you'd stop looking at me like I was normal." Dylan exhaled slowly. "You think I care about your last name more than I care about what you went through?" Ava blinked. "It's hard to know who sees me, and who sees the story. I see the woman who gave her coat to a shivering old man outside the shelter, the one who fixed my leaky roof with duct tape and determination. That's the version of you that matters." Ava's eyes filled with tears, but she laughed. That duct tape was expensive. That moment, small as it was, sealed something between them, an unspoken understanding that neither of them had asked for, but both desperately needed. Over the next few days, Ava helped around the property while Dylan worked at the mechanic shop nearby. She fixed the cracked kitchen tiles, repainted the porch railings, and even revived a forgotten vegetable patch. They laughed often, shared meals, and slowly pulled each other out of their lonely orbits. But trouble doesn't knock politely, it barges in. It started when a man in a tailored suit walked into Dylan's workplace, pretending to be a customer. He was smooth, well-spoken, but evasive about what car he drove or what service he needed. "You're Dylan Price, right?" the man asked casually while tapping a pen on the counter. Dylan nodded cautiously. "Yeah." "Why?" The man smiled. "You're a hard guy to reach." Dylan's stomach twisted. "I don't owe anyone money, if that's what you're implying." "Oh, no, nothing like that," the man said, still smiling. "Just wondering if you've seen this woman lately." He slid a photograph across the counter. Ava, hair pulled back, dressed in corporate attire, standing next to an older man. Her father. She looked different. Not broken, but hardened. Dylan didn't flinch. He pushed the photo back. "Never seen her." The man chuckled. "You sure?" "She's been missing. Big reward, too. You'd think someone would want to help her." Dylan stared him down. "I'd rather help her stay missing." The smile vanished. "If you see her, tell her Trevor says hello." And with that, the man walked out. Dylan's knuckles turned white around the wrench he'd been holding. Trevor. So he wasn't just some bitter ex. He was part of the machinery trying to destroy. That night, Dylan told Ava what happened. She didn't speak for a long time after hearing Trevor's name. "I knew it," she whispered eventually. "They'll never stop. They want to bury the truth." Dylan's voice was calm but firm. "Then we make the truth impossible to bury." "What do you mean?" "You need to go back, on your terms, with your voice, with evidence." She laughed, bitterly. "They own every courtroom we'd step into, but not every person, not every story. We tell the world. We fight the way they never expect, with honesty. Ava looked at him, this man with oil-stained hands and storm-hardened eyes, and felt a surge of strength that hadn't stirred in months. "There's one place we can start," she said. "The lawyer. My mother's old friend. She hated what my father became. She warned me years ago. I didn't listen." The next day, they drove to an old house on the edge of East Haven. The woman, Margaret Rios, was in her 70s and still sharp as steel. "I knew you'd come," she said when Ava appeared on her doorstep. "They're vultures, your father and Trevor. But they left enough crumbs. I kept copies, against my better judgment." Margaret handed Ava a thin folder. Inside were documents, unauthorized share transfers, falsified medical reports, and a record of Ava's trust being moved into a shell company. "Why would you keep this?" Ava asked, overwhelmed. "Because I hoped you'd grow into the woman I always believed you were. And you have." That night back at Dylan's house, Ava stared at the evidence. "Tomorrow," she said, her voice steady, "we go public." Dylan nodded. But his gut told him Trevor wasn't done yet, and he was right. Just after midnight, a rock smashed through the kitchen window. Glass exploded across the floor. On the rock, a note in blood-red ink. "We warned you. Stay quiet or stay buried." Ava gasped, clutching Dylan's arm. This wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. They were coming for her, and maybe for both of them. The trap they walked into. The shattered glass still lay scattered across the kitchen floor, glittering in the early morning sun like tiny shards of danger. Dylan swept it up carefully, while Ava stood in the corner, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her face was pale but set with determination. "They want to scare us into silence," she said, voice low. "They want us to feel hunted," Dylan replied, dumping the glass into a metal bin. "But they forget I've lived in fear before. It doesn't work on me anymore." Ava looked at him. "What are we going to do?" He turned to her, the morning light catching the hard lines of his jaw. "We go louder. We go public. Today." They packed the documents Margaret had given them, copies of share transfers, emails between her father and Trevor, records of the forced psychiatric plans, and drove to the only place that would take their side without selling their story to the highest bidder. A local independent journalist named Ruby Lane, known for exposing corruption in small towns, especially when money tried to silence the truth. Ruby's office was inside a rundown art studio that smelled faintly of coffee, linseed oil, and stubborn rebellion. She was typing furiously when they arrived, her fingers moving across the keys like they were part of her nervous system. "You have 5 minutes," she said, without looking up. "Make them count." Ava stepped forward. "I'm Ava Hale." "Ruby, stop typing. You disappeared 5 months ago. Headlines everywhere, no press releases, no public search, no police pressure. Rumors said you had a breakdown. I didn't." Ava placed the envelope on her desk. "I was set up by my father and my fiancée. They wanted me institutionalized to steal my shares. I have proof." Ruby opened the envelope slowly, her journalistic instincts flaring. As she scanned the documents, her eyes widened. "This is gold," she whispered. "No, this is napalm. I'm not doing this for revenge," Ava said. "I just want the truth out." Ruby nodded, impressed. "You're brave. You know what will happen once this goes live, right? They'll come at you with everything." "She's not alone," Dylan said, his voice calm and deep. Ruby met his eyes, then looked back at Ava. "Okay, I'll write the story, publish it. Under my name, my platform. It'll hit like lightning. You just need to disappear until it does." They returned to Dylan's cabin that night with a strange calm in their bones, like the storm had passed or was about to fully break. Ava made soup. Dylan checked the locks twice. They barely spoke, but the silence between them was solid, comforting, necessary. Their bond had gone from strangers to something dangerously close to unspoken intimacy. By midnight, the article went live. Ruby didn't hold back. The headline read, "Heir to Hale Fortune Says Family Tried to Commit Her to Steal Shares." Proof inside. Screenshots, signatures, emails, witness quotes. Margaret had even gone on record. It was everywhere within an hour. Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, even Instagram. Ava's story had gone viral, and the court of public opinion was turning against the once unshakable Hale family. By morning, reporters camped outside Hale Enterprises in East Haven. Shareholders demanded answers. The board called an emergency meeting. Trevor was nowhere to be found, but Dylan wasn't celebrating. He knew better. "Cornered snakes bite hardest," he told Ava. He was right again. That afternoon, a black SUV pulled up across the street from the auto shop where Dylan worked. He was fixing an old Pontiac when the driver got out, tall, muscular, dressed in a tight black suit. No words, just a slow, threatening walk toward Dylan. Dylan stood. "Can I help you?" The man didn't stop. Dylan clenched the wrench in his hand. "I asked if..." Before he finished, the man swung. Dylan ducked, narrowly avoiding a brutal punch. He retaliated fast, the wrench slamming into the man's side, a grunt, another swing, a scuffle in the dust. Dylan was smaller but faster. Eventually the man collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. "Tell Trevor," Dylan said between breaths, "if he wants to finish what he started, he'll have to do it himself." The man spat blood, climbed into the SUV, and drove off. That night, Dylan didn't go home. Instead, he rented a small motel on the edge of town and brought Ava there. "Too many eyes on the house now," he explained. "We need a decoy." He called an old friend from his army days, Briggs, a surveillance expert turned private security contractor. Briggs arrived at the motel just before dawn. Bald, bearded, and wearing a cracked leather jacket, he greeted Dylan with a bear hug. And a grunt. "You always pick the interesting ones," Briggs said, nodding toward Ava. "She's worth it." Briggs didn't argue. "You want me to ghost her? Get her out without being seen?" "No. We want to bait them," Dylan said. Ava turned. "What?" "We leak your location," Dylan explained. "Make them come to us. Then we catch them. Red-handed. Let the police finish the job." "It's risky," Ava said quietly. "So is running forever." She stared at him, then nodded. The trap was set. Briggs parked a decoy car outside an abandoned warehouse with Ava's scarf tied to the mirror, a subtle but clear signal to anyone watching. Then he planted cameras, tiny, invisible, military-grade, at every entrance and corner. Ava, Dylan, and Briggs waited in a van across the street, watching live footage on a laptop screen. Nothing. In for an hour. Then a black van rolled in. 3 men stepped out, one of them, Trevor, Ava's hands curled into fists. "That's him." He looked thinner than she remembered. Colder, like power had poisoned what was left of his humanity. The men broke into the warehouse and started searching. Briggs clicked record. "Got 'em." But then something unexpected happened. Trevor walked to the center of the warehouse and looked directly at one of the hidden cameras. He smiled. "Dylan Price," he said aloud, as if talking directly to them. "This little game of yours, it's adorable." He took out a lighter, flicked it. "No!" Before anyone could react, the screen went white. They saw flames erupt inside. The warehouse! Briggs cursed and jumped out of the van. Dylan followed. By the time they reached the warehouse, the men were gone. A fire blazed inside, swallowing the fake clues. "They knew," Dylan growled. "They turned it back on us." Ava looked stunned. "He knew where the cameras were." "They were tipped off," Briggs nodded grimly. "Someone betrayed us." "But who?" Ava whispered. "That question was answered 2 days later when Ruby called." "You're not going to like this," she said. "What is it?" Ava asked. "I got an anonymous message, a voice file. It was spliced between 2 blank emails sent to my burner address." She played the clip. It was Margaret's voice. "Arthur, please, I gave them the papers like you asked. I planted the decoy location. Just don't hurt Ava. Please." Ava's knees buckled. "No," she whispered. "She sold us out," Dylan said quietly. Ruby was silent. Your father must have threatened her, or paid her, or both. Ava stared into the distance, her expression hollow. I thought she was my last ally. Dylan sat beside her. You still have me. She looked at him, and for the first time, since the beginning, the fear broke. A tear slid down her cheek, but she didn't look away. She leaned into him, rested her head on his shoulder. I don't know how this ends, she said softly. With truth, he replied, and maybe with fire. The next morning they returned to East Haven in secret. Ruby met them at a safe house hidden behind a bookstore. She had a plan. You don't fight power with silence, she said. You fight it with a camera. She handed Ava a small lapel mic. Tonight, you meet your father, alone, but you wear this. No, Dylan protested. It's too dangerous. It's the only way, Ava said. He'll never confess unless he thinks he's won. She looked at Dylan, her eyes fierce. And I want him to think he has. That night, Ava met Arthur Hale in the rooftop bar of Hale Tower. She wore black, elegant, simple, powerful. Her father greeted her with his usual ice-cold charm. Ava, I'm glad you came. She sat down slowly. Let's not pretend, father. You made quite a mess, publicly slandering your own family. You made that choice when you tried to silence me. He smiled faintly. I did what I had to. Trevor did what he was told. Your emotions always got in the way of your potential. Ava leaned in. You had Margaret set us up. You had men break into Dylan's home. You burned down that warehouse. Of course I did, he said coolly. And if you keep fighting me, I'll do worse. Click. Ruby's recorder caught every word. Outside the bar, Dylan and Briggs were already on the move. Cops waited downstairs. Ava stood, her voice clear. Then you've already lost. Arthur frowned. What? Police burst through the doors. You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted arson. One officer barked. Arthur Hale stood, his face a mask of disbelief. You set a trap, he growled at Ava. She smiled. No. I finished what? You started. As they took her father away, Ava walked out into the night, Dylan waiting at the curb. She stepped into his arms without hesitation. I'm free, she whispered. Not yet, he said. But we're close. The truth, the trial and the turnaround, Ava watched from the courtroom gallery, her fingers clenched tightly in her lap, as her father, Arthur Hale, sat at the defendant's table, his face still composed, but the pride in his eyes dimmed. He was no longer untouchable, no longer the Empire's iron-willed godfather. Now he was just a man surrounded by cold legal walls, cuffed by the very system he thought he controlled. Beside her sat Dylan, his broad frame still, his jaw tight. He wasn't a man who found peace easily, but there was something softer in the way he looked. At her now, a quiet respect, a growing admiration that neither of them had dared to speak aloud. The courtroom buzzed as Ava's name was called. She stood, straightened her back, and walked to the stand. I'm Ava Hale, she began, voice steady echoing through the courtroom. Daughter of Arthur Hale, former majority shareholder of Hale Enterprises. A pause. She glanced at her father, who looked back, unreadable. For years, I believed I was being prepared to take my rightful place in the family business. But I was naive. I didn't realize that my independence was a threat to the legacy my father built, a legacy he believed could only be preserved through control. The prosecution nodded, urging her to continue. When I began asking questions, when I hesitated to approve reckless business expansions, I was labeled unstable. Without my knowledge, my fiancé Trevor and my father arranged for me to be declared mentally unfit. Gasps rippled through the room. They forged psychiatric reports, hired a doctor to claim I was a danger to myself. The plan was to commit me, strip me of my voting rights, and take my shares. She reached into her pocket and held up a small, Audio device. This is a recording of my father confessing to everything, and I have documents to support every word. The judge nodded solemnly. The evidence will be reviewed. Thank you, Miss Hale. As she stepped down from the stand, her father stood. Ava. But she didn't stop. She walked past him, past the place where her past had tried to kill her, and returned to Dylan, who stood the moment she approached. Wordlessly, they left. The courtroom outside, the world had shifted. Cameras flashed. Journalists screamed questions. Ava, what's next for the Hale family? Is it true you've disowned the company? Who's the man you've been seen with? Dylan Price. They pushed through the chaos. Dylan's hand gently at the small of her back. Not possessive, protective. Once inside the car, Ava slumped against the seat. It's done, she whispered. Dylan looked at her. Not quite. The trial will go on for weeks. He's still fighting, but the world knows, she said, and I didn't break. No, he said. You became someone they can't ever silence again. The weeks passed in a strange fog of freedom and exhaustion. Arthur Hale was denied bail and held in custody. Trevor fled the country, but was later arrested trying to cross into Argentina with a fake passport. He was extradited and slapped with charges of conspiracy, fraud, and attempted assault. Margaret, whose betrayal still burned like salt in Ava's chest, sent a letter from her quiet exile in Maine. I know I can't ask your forgiveness, but I want you to know I never stopped loving you. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. Ava read the letter twice before tucking it into a drawer. Some wounds didn't need healing. They just needed time to scar. One morning, while the sun rose soft and golden through Dylan's cabin window, Ava stirred in bed. The warmth beside her was gone. She found him outside, barefoot on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the woods as if they could whisper the answers he still didn't have. She sat beside him. You ever wonder what comes next? He nodded slowly. All the time. I don't want the company anymore, she said quietly. It never really felt like mine. Dylan looked at her. So, what will you do? She hesitated, then smiled. Live a little. Build something of my own. Maybe something small, honest, grounded. He smiled at that. You'll be good at that. You could come with me, she said suddenly, the words escaping before her fear could swallow them. He turned to her, searching her face. You sure? I'm sure of you, she said. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded once. Then I'm in. They started small. Ava used the remaining funds from her liquidated shares to buy a run-down plot of land just outside town, a wide space with a view of the lake and a forgotten barn in desperate need of love. Together, they began turning it into something beautiful, a retreat for women recovering from trauma, a place where no one could declare you crazy or unstable just because you said no. They called it Hale Haven. And the irony wasn't lost on either of them. People came, quiet at first, then in waves, survivors, fighters, women who had been silenced and pushed aside. And Ava was there, at the center, not as a millionaire's daughter, but as someone who understood. The final day of the trial arrived. Dylan sat beside Ava in the courtroom again, but this time she didn't tremble. The verdict was swift. Arthur Hale, guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, with no possibility of early release. When Ava met her father's gaze one last time, he didn't look angry. He looked tired. She didn't feel triumph. She felt peace. Months passed. Seasons changed. Hale. Haven grew. Dylan taught self-defense to anyone who wanted to learn. Ava led healing circles and built partnerships with non-profits. They planted wildflowers by the lake. The barn became a sanctuary. One evening, after a long day spent helping a young woman escape an abusive home, Ava returned to the main cabin and found Dylan outside again, this time dressed in his best. He held a small box in his hand. She stared. He opened it slowly. A simple silver ring, nothing flashy. Just honest. I didn't expect this, she said, her voice cracking. He stepped forward. I didn't either, but here we are. I don't need saving, she whispered. I know, he said. I just want to walk beside you. Tears spilled. Down her cheeks. Yes, she breathed. The wedding was small. Briggs stood as best man. Ruby came too, grinning through tears. A few of the women from Hale Haven brought wildflower crowns. No reporters, no drama, just laughter, healing, and two people who had nothing left to prove. One night, as they sat by the fire, Ava resting, her head on Dylan's shoulder, she said softly, "You changed everything when you helped me on that street. I was just a stranger to you." He looked down at her. "And you gave me back a life I didn't know I still wanted." She smiled. "Guess we saved each other." He kissed her gently. The fire crackled, and the darkness, for the first time in a long while, felt warm. The end.